In the middle of Trump's furious attacks, Jasmine Crockett refused to back down. With calm but powerful words, she suggested that the story many have accepted for years, that Jared Kushner is the father of Ivanka's children, may not be as certain as it seems. The stage was set for what was supposed to be just another political debate. Bright lights filled the studio, cameras zoomed in, and the audience was waiting for the usual back and forth between leaders who rarely see eye to eye. On one side sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, calm but sharp-eyed, ready to answer questions. On the other side sat Donald Trump, never one to hold back his words, especially when the spotlight was on him. From the very beginning, it was clear this wasn't going to be a quiet conversation. Trump came out swinging, not with policy arguments, but with personal attacks. His voice carried that familiar sharp edge as he leaned toward the microphone. He accused Crockett of being dishonest. He said she had no business representing the American people. He threw out claims of shady connections and whispered deals. Each word was chosen not to debate ideas, but to tear her down. The audience could almost feel the weight of the words, like arrows being launched straight at her reputation. For most people, sitting under that kind of fire would be overwhelming. Cameras rolling, millions watching, president pointing fingers and calling you a fraud. Many would shrink under that spotlight, maybe stutter, maybe try to defend themselves nervously. But Jasmine Crockett didn't move a muscle. She sat tall, her eyes locked on Trump, her expression calm but focused, almost like she had expected this exact attack, almost like she had been waiting for it. Trump, seeing that his first strikes weren't shaking her, doubled down. His tone grew louder, more aggressive. He interrupted her whenever she opened her mouth. He claimed she had no future in politics and hinted that her career was already over. His words weren't just meant to argue. They were meant to crush. And yet something strange happened. The harder Trump pushed, the calmer Crockett became. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't throw insults back. Instead, she sat there quietly, letting him throw everything he had, almost like a fighter letting an opponent swing wildly until they're too tired to keep going. Behind those calm eyes, Crockett was making a decision. She realized she couldn't win this battle by simply defending herself. Trump was too loud, too relentless, too skilled at twisting the spotlight his way. If she wanted to cut through the noise, she needed something stronger, and she had it. For months, Crockett had been holding on to information, dangerous information, the kind of truth that could shake the image Trump had carefully built around himself and his family. She hadn't planned to use it that night. But as Trump's attacks grew more vicious, as he tried to not only argue with her but destroy her reputation, she understood something. This was the moment. Slowly, she leaned forward. Her hands rested firmly on the desk. Her voice was steady, not raised, but strong enough to cut through Trump's interruptions. The audience didn't know it yet. But Crockett was about to shift the entire conversation. She wasn't going to defend herself. She wasn't going to play Trump's game. She was going to expose a secret that had been buried under layers of silence and denial. And she knew exactly where to start with Ivanka Trump. The second she chose to bring Ivanka into the conversation, she was stepping into dangerous territory. Trump might insult politicians all day, but the moment his family became part of the discussion, that was where the fire really started. The audience didn't see it coming. The hosts didn't see it coming. Even Trump himself, sharp and defensive as ever, didn't see it coming. But Jasmine Crockett was ready. This wasn't just going to be another live debate. This was going to be the moment where hidden truths slipped into the light, where the fight between a powerful man and a determined congresswoman would cross into territory no one expected. The room grew tense. The cameras focused in. The audience leaned closer to their screens. And with a single sentence, Crockett would take control of the night. The moment hung in the air like electricity before a storm. Jasmine Crockett had sat through Trump's insults, his attempts to bulldoze her voice, and his loud attacks meant to crush her credibility. But now the tables were about to turn. She leaned in, her voice lower, steadier, more deliberate. Every eye in the studio locked on her. And then with a calm that cut through the chaos, she said, "Sometimes the truth about family lineage is hidden in plain sight, and it's time to stop hiding. That's time to stop hiding." It was just one sentence, but it landed like thunder. The host froze. The crew froze. Even the audience watching at home could sense something was about to break wide open, and for the first time all night, Trump didn't immediately cut in. For the briefest moment, he was silent. He was silent. But Crockett wasn't done. She let the silence stretch, building suspense before dropping a line that sent the studio into shock. There is significant reason to question the commonly accepted story that Jared Kushner is the father of Ivanka's children. Gasps rippled across the room. 20. The hosts blinked in disbelief. A camera operator nearly missed his focus, the lens jerking as if even he couldn't believe what he just heard. And the audience at home, they leaned closer to their screens, hearts pounding, trying to process what was just said. It wasn't only shocking. It was dangerous. Crockett hadn't revealed everything. Not yet. She'd given just enough to rattle the ground beneath Trump's feet. Just enough to make people wonder. The hosts tried to regain control. Congresswoman Crockett, one of them pressed, his voice almost trembling. "Are you saying what it sounds like you're saying? Are you suggesting Ivanka's children might not?" He stopped, almost afraid to finish the sentence. But Crockett didn't answer directly. Not yet. She sat back slightly, her expression unreadable, as if she knew the power of silence was sometimes stronger than words. Trump, however, could not stay silent. His face turned red, his voice shot up, and he erupted. "Lies, disgusting lies!" he shouted, jabbing his finger across the table. "This is fake. This is garbage. You're attacking my family because you have nothing else." He kept going, his voice echoing louder than anyone else in the room. He accused Crockett of plotting against him, accused the hosts of staging a smear, accused everyone on set of conspiring against his family, but the more he shouted, the more obvious it became. He was rattled. The audience could see it. His fury wasn't the confident swagger they had come to expect. This was different. His words stumbled over each other. His interruptions became frantic. His body leaned forward aggressively as if trying to shut down the conversation with sheer force. And that reaction, that raw, uncontrolled anger, only gave Crockett's words more weight, because if there was truly nothing to her hint, why would Trump be so desperate to silence it? The hosts sensed it too. They pressed again more carefully this time. "Congresswoman, you've just raised something extraordinary. Do you have more details? Can you explain what you meant?" Crockett's eyes flicked toward Trump, then back to the hosts. Her calmness was almost eerie compared to his chaos. She chose her words carefully, not rushing, not spilling everything at once. "I think the American people deserve honesty," she said simply. "And sometimes the stories we're told don't match the evidence we uncover." The room tensed again. Every second stretched longer than the last. Trump cut in with another furious denial, calling her a disgrace and an embarrassment. He tried to drown her out with volume, his voice practically shaking with rage. But Crockett didn't yell back. She didn't need to. She had planted the seed, the thought, the suspicion, and that's what made it so powerful. The audience watching didn't need all the details yet. They didn't need proof spelled out in that moment. All they needed was that question planted in their minds. What if Jared Kushner isn't the father of Ivanka's children? It was the kind of thought that couldn't be unheard, the kind of hint that lingered, whispered, and grew stronger the more someone tried to shut it down. And as Trump's fury filled the studio, as he waved his hands and slammed the table, the contrast was striking. His anger only made Crockett look calmer, stronger, more believable. The more he tried to silence her, the more people wanted to hear what she had to say. And Crockett knew it. She hadn't revealed the full bombshell yet, not even close. But by choosing her words carefully, by letting the tension rise, she had already taken control of the entire broadcast. Everyone in that studio, hosts, crew, even Trump himself, understood one thing. Whatever was coming next, it was going to change everything. The second Jasmine Crockett dropped her cryptic hint, Donald Trump's composure began to crack. It wasn't a slow crumble. It was sharp, immediate, like a glass shattering on the floor. At first, he tried to laugh it off, an awkward, forced chuckle that didn't match the look in his eyes. He wagged a finger across the table and said, "Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Nobody believes that nonsense." But the tremble in his voice betrayed him, and then almost in an instant, his temper exploded. His face turned red, his jaw tightened, and he leaned so far across the desk you'd think he was trying to step out of his chair. His voice rose with every word echoing through the studio. "Lies! Pure lies!" he shouted, stabbing the air with his finger. This is a disgrace. This woman is a disgrace. She should be ashamed of herself for saying this garbage on television. The hosts shifted uncomfortably, trying to calm the chaos, but Trump wasn't listening. He talked over them, over Crockett, over anyone who dared to open their mouth. He didn't just want to disagree. He wanted to smother the conversation completely. But the more he shouted, the more it seemed like Jasmine Crockett had struck something raw, something sensitive. Because if her words were truly meaningless, wouldn't he just brush them off? Wouldn't he smile, shake his head, and call it silly? That's what confident people do when faced with baseless claims. They dismiss, they don't explode. But Trump wasn't dismissing, he was unraveling. Yeah. Crockett, meanwhile, sat still. She didn't match his volume. She didn't throw back insults. She didn't even flinch. She simply watched him, calm, steady, her eyes locked on him, as if she could see right through the rage to the fear underneath. It was like watching two fighters in the ring, one swinging wildly with no control, the other standing firm, letting the storm rage without moving an inch. The hosts tried again to step in. "Mr. President, let her finish," one began. Trump cut them off instantly. No. She's not going to sit here and spread disgusting lies about my family. She's attacking Ivanka. She's attacking my grandchildren. It's evil. It's sick. And you're all letting her do it." He slammed his hand on the desk, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the tense studio. The crew shifted nervously behind the cameras. The hosts exchanged uneasy glances, and millions of viewers at home could see it plain as day. Trump wasn't just angry, he was shaken. Meanwhile, Crockett finally spoke again, her tone quiet but cutting through the noise like a blade. "Mr. Trump," she said softly, "if what I said wasn't true, why are you so afraid of it?" That question hung in the air like smoke. The studio went still. For the first time all night, Trump didn't have an instant comeback. His mouth opened, then closed again before he roared into another denial. "This is disgusting. You're trying to ruin families. You're trying to destroy lives. You should be ashamed. This is all fake, all made up." Oh, made up. But his fury no longer had the same weight. The louder he got, the more desperate he looked, and the calmer Crockett stayed, the stronger she appeared. The audience at home could feel it. The power had shifted. Trump's shouting wasn't silencing her. It was amplifying her. Every interruption, every outburst, every furious denial only made her hint sound more believable. The hosts leaned forward nervously, pressing again. "Congresswoman, this is serious. Are you saying you have actual proof?" Trump tried to jump in, waving his hands, shouting, "Don't answer that. Don't you dare answer that." But Crockett didn't even look at him. She looked straight at the hosts, her eyes steady, her voice unwavering. And in that moment, everyone in the studio and everyone watching at home realized something. Trump had lost control. The man who prided himself on dominating every stage, who never let anyone else steal the spotlight, was now drowning in his own fury. And Jasmine Crockett, calm and collected, was quietly pulling the ground out from beneath him. The clash had shifted. It was no longer Trump versus Crockett. It was Trump versus his own temper, and he was losing. The tension had reached its breaking point. Trump was red-faced, pounding the desk, spitting words faster than the microphones could catch. He was shouting about lies, conspiracies, disgrace. But Jasmine Crockett stayed perfectly composed, her hands folded neatly, her eyes locked straight ahead. The hosts leaned in, their voices trembling as they asked the question everyone at home was screaming in their heads. "Congresswoman Crockett, are you saying you have proof?" For a moment, silence blanketed the studio. Trump's chest heaved with rage. The audience held their breath, and Crockett, steady as stone, finally spoke. "My investigation," she said, her voice calm but sharp as glass, "uncovered compelling evidence that challenges the accepted story, and it points toward unexpected family connections directly linked to Donald Trump." The words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. The reaction was immediate. The hosts gasped. The crew members behind the cameras looked at each other in disbelief. The audience watching at home felt their hearts racing. Trump erupted, "Lie. Total lies made up by losers, by haters, by people who want to destroy me." He slammed his fist again, his voice cracking under the weight of his anger. "This is all fake. None of it is true. You're disgusting for even saying this on air." But Crockett didn't back down. She leaned closer to her microphone, her voice cutting through his rage like a blade through thick fog. "I spent months on this investigation," she continued. "I spoke to people close to your family. I verified documents that were never meant to see the light of day." I compared timelines of Ivanka's pregnancies, your whereabouts, your private movements, and the pattern is undeniable. The host froze. The studio filled with whispers, gasps, the shuffling of chairs. Trump barked denials, his words tumbling over each other as he waved his hands, trying to block the sound of her voice. But the more he shouted, the clearer she became. I have testimonies, she said firmly. Insiders from your own circle who could no longer carry the weight of what they knew. Leaked photographs, written records, evidence that directly challenges the story you've sold to the public. Trump pounded the desk again. None of it's real. You're lying. They're all liars. You're trying to destroy my family because you can't beat me any other way. His fury filled the room, but it only fed the moment. Viewers weren't seeing a calm leader denying an outrageous claim. They were seeing a man losing his grip on live television. And beside him sat a woman who wasn't blinking, wasn't breaking, wasn't even raising her voice. Crockett's next words came slowly, deliberately, like each one was a nail being hammered into the coffin of silence that had protected the Trump family for years. I didn't want to go here. But after tonight, after you tried to smear me with false accusations, I refused to stay silent. The American people deserve to know who is shaping their future and what kind of secrets are being buried behind closed doors. The studio went dead quiet. Even Trump for a split second seemed stunned into silence. His eyes darted left and right, searching for a way to shut it down. Then, almost on cue, he launched back into his furious denials, his voice louder than ever. But the damage was done. Crockett had ripped open a door that could never be closed again. She had taken whispers and rumors and elevated them into the public eye. And she had done it in the one place where it couldn't be hidden, spun, or quietly erased. Live on national television, as the host tried to regain control, as Trump shouted himself, as the audience sat stunned, one thing became clear. This was no longer about a political debate. This was about power, truth, and secrets that could shake the foundation of a family, and maybe even the country. And with every furious denial, Donald Trump made it look less like a baseless attack and more like Jasmine Crockett had struck the truth. The studio had never felt so tense. Cameras kept rolling, lights burned hotter, and every person watching knew they weren't just witnessing another political spat. Something far deeper had just been pulled into the open. Donald Trump was still raging, his voice echoing across the set. He shouted about conspiracies, about people out to destroy him, about enemies who would stop at nothing. His fists hit the desk again and again, as if volume and force could erase what had just been said. But the more he shouted, the more hollow it sounded. His anger wasn't silencing the moment. It was fueling it. And Jasmine Crockett, she remained calm, steady, almost unnervingly composed. While Trump flailed and raged, she sat with the quiet power of someone who had already won the battle. Every denial from Trump only made her claim sound more believable. Every furious outburst made the contrast between them sharper. Finally, when the host managed to quiet the storm for just a second, Crockett spoke again, her voice low, but carrying a weight that no amount of shouting could drown out. I didn't bring this forward to smear a family, she said. I brought it forward because when private secrets shape public power, the people deserve the truth. Too often the lives of those in charge don't match the image they sell to the country. And that disconnect, it matters. The hosts leaned forward, hanging on her every word. Even the audience, silent for what felt like minutes, seemed frozen in place. She continued, tonight, I revealed this here live because if I hadn't, it would be buried, hidden, locked away where no one could question it. And I believe in accountability. I believe the truth doesn't belong to the powerful, it belongs to the people. Her words cut through the heavy air like a blade. And though she had not laid out every piece of evidence on camera, the message was unmistakable. This was only the beginning. Trump, however, couldn't contain himself. His face burned red, his hands waved furiously, and his voice cracked with rage. None of this is true. It's a hit job. She's lying to all of you. She should be thrown out of Congress for this. She should be sued. He pounded the desk once more, his fury boiling over for the world to see. But as his denials grew louder, his composure slipped further. What people saw wasn't just anger. It was fear. Fear that the questions Crockett had raised couldn't simply be brushed aside. Fear that once spoken aloud, this secret could never be shoved back into silence. The hosts, would-date and shaken, tried to move on, but there was no moving on. The tension clung to the air. Every person in that studio knew the show had crossed into history. Every viewer at home knew they had just seen something raw, unfiltered, unforgettable. Crockett ended with one final statement, calm but resolute. This isn't about me. It isn't even about you, Mr. Trump. It's about truth, because when the truth is hidden, democracy itself is at risk. And I won't let that happen. And with that, the conversation was over. Trump was still shouting, still red with fury, but Crockett's words lingered longer than his volume. The cameras caught it all. The fury, the calm, the clash of power and truth. And as the broadcast ended, one question burned into the minds of everyone watching. If this is what Crockett was willing to reveal live on air, what else does she have? The answer wasn't given that night, but the seed had been planted. The questions were alive, and no matter how loudly Trump denied, the echoes of Crockett's bombshell would not fade away. For the first time in years, the unshakable Donald Trump looked shaken, and the world had just witnessed it.